do is find a way to not pay him the $32 million. So, my opinion, I think they just need to pay the $32 million, suck it up as a bad debt. They'll make that money back. And let's get the focus off of this. Let's make it go away. The unfortunate thing, the end networks are going to be lining up to give him a job. Rick, go right ahead.
Yeah, so on this, and Reese Davis actually came out a couple days ago and said the reason why for the paid administrative leave, I mean, there's a couple reasons why, but Reese Davis feels like they're doing this so they can negotiate the terms of a separation, for Urban Meyer, and I agree with that. Of course, the other reason why, when a story like this comes out, Ohio State has to protect themselves. They just can't run Urban Meyer out on the practice field during something like this, and then take all the heat from the public for it at the same time. So that's the two reasons why for the paid administrative leave. My question is, how come Zach Smith wasn't fired in 2015 when, according to Urban Meyer's statement from yesterday now, he knew about this in 2015, and he sent this up the chain in 2015, and nobody did anything about it in 2015. So my question is, why wasn't Zach Smith fired by anybody in 2015? Why wait until some of this stuff came out publicly and Zach Smith was fired of July 23rd of this year, and now it's a big story? So how come, what changed between 2015 and now? Why fire him now, not fire him back in 2015, Matt?
Well, if you go by that sense, that sounds like a cover-up to me, which does not look good. But again, I think we're rushing to judgment here a little bit because, just like I said, the Arizona situation, everybody thought for sure, Sean Miller was gone. What's happened? He's kept his job. So we just need to let this play out. I don't think we need to look at saying a rash judgment right now. Until we know for sure he is gone, we have to assume that he could still be the coach this year.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were continuing on with something, with a thought there. I do apologize. So here's a couple things, guys. Then I want to go around the horn and get your thoughts on a couple of things. So Adam, who's been on the show before, big Cleveland Browns fan, he was not able to join us today for this conversation. He was invited, but he has swim lessons for his son. So his thoughts are, just a second here. His thoughts are, I want to make sure I get it right. People are upset that he didn't report it. He did report it. Again, as Rick just said, now he's running the athletic director underneath the bus. Is he, though? If he really did that, maybe the blame does fall on the athletic director. And the school acted accordingly. The police did not press charges. There again, that was the other point that I was going to make a while ago. Keep in mind that the abuser here was never actually charged with a domestic abuse crime. This was uncovered by the ESPN reporter, or funny, wasn't ESPN reporter, but was still getting paid by ESPN, and now he's with the stadium, and I can't remember his name, Brett something, but either which way, thank you, yeah, Brett McMurphy. Either which way, he found this information through public records that he had been cited in civil case for domestic violence. So there was no crime to cover up. So that's part of it too. So the police didn't press charges. I really don't see how they can fire him for just mere accusations. If we look at it just in that context and in that light, and if you just look at it from the legal eyes, and there's a reason why justice wears a blindfold, is because they just look at the clear black and white. When you look at the clear black and white, Urban Meyer is not covering up any crime because there was never any crime charged. Rick?
Okay, so let's look at it like that. So this goes back to 2009, and I think even all the way back to 2005, where Zach Smith and Urban Meyer been on the coaching staff together here, and Urban Meyer has known about this all the way back from an incident, I think, from 2005. So if you have an employee working for you that you know beats his wife, but he's never been arrested for it, Your standard is then you still just allow him to keep his job because he hasn't been arrested for it, even though you know he's a wife beater. That's my take on it. I just think that's a bad argument from Ohio State fans because that's the only one that they go to, that Zach Smith was never – there's no charges ever pressed against him for this type of thing. I understand that's their fight because it's Urban Meyer talking about as their head coach. If he gets fired, I think Ohio State falls out of college football relevance for the next 2-3 years or so. So that's the argument they make, and that's their fight. But my take is if you have an employee that you know has been beating his wife, you kept him on your staff just because he's never arrested for it, that's pretty bad.
Oh, absolutely. Totally agree. Could not agree with you more. Matt, what are your thoughts?
I don't think Ohio State drops out of relevance. I mean, unless they have a massive SMU got the death penalty or massive probation penalties, which to this day, and I'm wondering if Penn State was warranted to get those penalties anyway. I still think Ohio State's going to be a factor. They just need to find the right coach. If I could stay in-house, find an interim on either the offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator, and I still think they will be a factor unless we have a massive exodus of players if and when Urban Meyer is released.
And that's a very good point, too. You got to look at when you go to fire a coach like Urban Meyer, you got to realize there's a lot of loyalty there with him, and you got to wonder, will you have a mass exodus? Do they want to protect their football program? Is it worth firing Urban Meyer? Now, I think we're all in agreement the guy needs to go. But from the personnel aspect and from the aspect of Ohio State, I don't know. That to us, the choice is very, very clear that Urban Meyer or Jesus Christ, it doesn't really matter. If they did this, they need to go. But it amazes me that whenever all these know-it-all coaches, these coaches, you mentioned the Arizona coach, and we think about Rick Pitino, we think about all these coaches that were great, are great coaches. Yes, Rick Pitino did get fired as he should have, but when everything came in, I don't know nothing about no strippers. What are you talking about? I don't know nothing about no hookers. What are you talking about? Urban Meyer, I don't know nothing about no domestic violence. What are you talking about? All of these coaches that know everything, and all of a sudden don't know nothing. And it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And then what it comes out to be is that they do know a lot more than what has been said. And again, I agree totally with Rick. If he's been covering up an abuser, he needs to go. Guys, I want to read you something here. Give me just a second here. So this was posted on Facebook, Urban Meyer from a friend of mine, and I'm going to keep the name out of the equation because the name does not matter. But here is the post, and I think it brings light to a lot of things when you think, well, why this is not about the victim, and I think her name was Brandy. Am I right on that, Rick? Right here in front of me.
It was Courtney Smith.
Courtney Smith. Brandy is Urban's wife, correct?
Yes, sir, yes.
No. Yeah.
Okay, Courtney Smith is a victim here that's been referenced. I just wanted to make sure I got that right. So it's important that we take a look from their point of view. She has no ill will toward Urban Meyer one way or the other. This was not about getting Urban Meyer fired. This was about, hey, I got to tell my story. So bear with me here for a moment here. I want to read this, and I thought it was pretty good, and I thought it was very relevant to what we're talking about. There are a lot of domestic abuse experts revealing themselves this week. It's easy to judge a situation you have no experience with. Why doesn't she just leave? She's just staying with him for the money. She should have been raised better. Why doesn't she know better? Domestic abuse happens in all facets of society, regardless of race, income level, education, etc. It's a complicated issue of trauma affects in every aspect of life or the entirety of it. Her relationship with men, her family, her children, her job, her personality, her ability to look people in the eye. The next time you're near a shelter, go inside and question her. You're surprised at how many strong, educated women who do know better were the right way and ended up living there. There are only there, and those are the ones that got out. I'm sorry. As you are ranting on Facebook about a woman you know nothing about, not, or don't know the situation, you can't fathom. Keep in mind that public shaming and judging of an abuse victim does not do anything to help her. It serves only to lower her self-esteem and self-worth and isolate her, which in turn makes it easier for her abuser to keep her a victim. I think that strong words and good words to be said about this victim that we're talking about, Rick.
Yeah, I agree. It's very well put, and it's the era that we're in right now too. Is the hypersensitivity to the domestic violence and the era of the Me Too movement, and actually we should be. So this stuff should be coming out, and I think that's a really good statement.
Matt?
Try to avoid on the situation like that. That's very iffy comments right there and stuff like that. I try to avoid saying anything on that as far as stuff like that. The fact of the matter is something did happen here, and regardless of the situation, Zach Smith does not deserve another job elsewhere in the world of football, college football, high school football, pro football, period. The question now is this stand more on what Coach Meyer did, Athletic Director Smith did, or School President G did? I think that's the bigger question right now, not the mindset of the victim here.
Well, here's the thing. I think that part of why we need to kind of look at this, because this is how the story broke when the reporter spent some time with the victim and she wanted to tell her story. And I think this is all it is that she's telling her story. She's trying to move on with her life, and in the process, we have a huge story like we have about Urban Meyer. So, no, I agree on what you're saying there, Matt. I just think that we're in a situation here, and we're going to get into some other college football talk. We'll circle back around to Urban Meyer in a little bit here because we want to talk about some other college football, and Mo from the BS Sports Show is going to join us here as well. I don't know how long you can stay with us, Matt, but you can stay with us as long as you want. We're going to take a break here in just a moment anyway. But let's go ahead and get the thoughts on how do I word this question? Do you think the story should have been released or broken? And do you think that the media, Rick, Matt, is making more out of this than maybe they should be?
Well, I think, and I agree with Matt from a statement he made earlier, that we should investigation and wait and see what all comes out of it before we jump into judgment. And I think that's where the media is blowing the story up like a lot bigger than a story. And, of course, in the social media age we're in too, everything gets a lot bigger than what maybe it should be. But I agree with Matt, and, with the media and what all the facts and everything that we know now, the story is bigger than what maybe it should be. But we're just going to have to wait and see what the evidence reveals.
Matt, do you think the media is making more out of this than is really there? Do you think that this is just a story because it's Urban Meyer? If it was somebody else, it wouldn't be a story.
I don't think it's just because it's Urban Meyer. Because remember, Dave Bliss, who was an unknown coach, was absolutely ripped apart after the situation that happened at Baylor. So it could happen anywhere. I don't think it's necessarily the coach situation. I think, again, we just need to be a little bit cautious with this because, like we said back in March, we thought for sure Sean Miller was gone as Arizona's head coach, and yet he is still there for another season and for this foreseeable run. So, but like I said, it doesn't look good for Coach Meyer right now. But, again, to say that he is going to be fired for sure, I think is still a really rash rush to judgment here until we know for sure what Ohio State's going to do here.
Agree with you, man. I'm on the fence on this. I mean, there's one part of me that the human man side of me that just wants to, kick Urban Meyer's ass and say, hey, get fired and, whatever. But then there's the other side of me that says,